Ladies and gentlemen, life has a way of presenting us with moments of challenge where we are tested not by our circumstances but by how we react to them. One of the greatest tests we face is in moments of disrespect. Disrespect can come from any direction, whether from a stranger, a colleague, or someone close to us. In those moments, the temptation to respond in anger or frustration can be overwhelming. But I encourage you today, do not react after disrespect. When someone disrespects you, remember their words or actions are a reflection of their inner struggles, not your worth. Disrespect often stems from someone else's own insecurities, fears, or wounds. It's not your job to carry the weight of their issues. In fact, reacting impulsively to disrespect only feeds into the negativity they have thrown your way. It is far wiser, far more powerful to rise above it. Emotional control is key. If you let the moment dictate your emotions, you surrender your peace to that person. Instead, pause, breathe, take a step back. By doing so, you allow yourself the space to think clearly, to respond with grace, and to demonstrate the kind of strength that cannot be shaken by the folly of others. Sometimes the best response is silence. Yes, silence. It may feel uncomfortable, but there is strength in silence. It speaks volumes about your dignity, your self-respect, and your ability to remain above the fray. You see, choosing silence does not mean weakness. It means wisdom. And in those moments, when you are tested, I urge you to consider forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean you condone the disrespect, but rather it means you choose to let go of any bitterness that may take root within you. It's not about them, it's about you. Forgiveness is the key to moving forward without carrying the chains of negativity with you. Now, let us not confuse forgiveness with allowing ourselves to be mistreated. While we are called to forgive, we are also called to protect our peace. If someone consistently disrespects you, it's not only okay, but necessary to set boundaries. Stand firm in your own worth and communicate what is acceptable and what is not. This is not a sign of weakness, but of a strong and healthy self-respect. At the end of the day, the most valuable thing we have is our peace. When we choose peace over conflict, we protect ourselves from the chaos that others may try to bring into our lives. You don't need to fight back to win. Your peace is your victory. So I leave you with this thought. Disrespect may come your way, but how you choose to react will define who you are in that moment. Choose grace over anger, silence over conflict, and forgiveness over bitterness. When you do, you will rise above, not only above the disrespect, but above your own expectations. Emotional control is essential when dealing with disrespect. It's all too easy to react impulsively when we're hurt, angry, or offended, but acting on those emotions rarely brings resolution or peace. When faced with disrespect, the first and most important thing we can do is manage our emotional responses. The impulse to lash out, defend ourselves, or retaliate can be strong, but it's crucial to pause, breathe, and choose a more deliberate course of action. When you allow emotions to drive your reactions, you lose control over the situation, and the moment often escalates. Your reaction is then dictated not by rational thought or your true values, but by the rawness of your emotions. Emotional reactions can lead to regret, creating a vicious cycle of conflict, hurt feelings, and damaged relationships. By exercising emotional control, you take back your power. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending that the disrespect didn't hurt you, but rather it means choosing not to act in ways that only deepen the conflict. When you respond thoughtfully, you not only preserve your dignity, but also protect your peace. Emotional control also builds inner strength. It's a sign of maturity and self-respect when we don't allow others' negativity to dictate our actions. Instead of reacting with anger or resentment, take a moment to reflect on the situation. Ask yourself, how do I want to handle this? What response will keep me true to myself? Such questions can steer your actions away from reactive emotional behavior and toward a more thoughtful, measured response. Ultimately, emotional control is about recognizing that your peace and well-being are far more important than engaging in an emotional battle. The ability to stay calm in the face of disrespect is a powerful tool that helps you navigate life's challenges with grace and poise. Disrespect is often more about the person showing it than about the recipient. It is a reflection of their inner struggles, insecurities, or frustrations. Often, those who lash out or disrespect others do so because of something within themselves, an unresolved issue, jealousy, fear, or personal dissatisfaction. They may be struggling to deal with their own challenges and project their pain onto others as a way to cope with their own feelings of inadequacy or frustration. Recognizing this allows us to take a step back and understand that disrespect isn't always personal. When you understand that someone's disrespect may come from a place of their own hurt or insecurity, it becomes easier not to take it to heart. Their behavior is more about them than it is about you. They are expressing their own pain, confusion, or struggles, and your reaction to it can either exacerbate their emotions or offer them a path toward reconciliation. This perspective can help remove the emotional charge from the situation. Rather than focusing on how much the disrespect hurts or how angry it makes you, understanding where it's coming from allows you to approach the matter with empathy. This doesn't mean you have to accept disrespect. Understanding disrespect in this way also helps us to forgive more easily. When we recognize that those who disrespect others are often dealing with their own difficulties, we can feel compassion for them, even if we don't condone their actions. This insight encourages us to respond with patience rather than bitterness, which ultimately frees us from carrying the burden of resentment. Furthermore, this understanding helps us to avoid taking things personally. We can step back and recognize that disrespect is not an assessment of our worth. It's simply the manifestation of someone else's emotional state. When we stop internalizing the actions of others, we become more resilient in the face of disrespect. Respond with grace. Grace is about taking the higher road. It involves choosing to be the bigger person, to not stoop to the level of those who seek to provoke you. By responding with grace, you not only diffuse the situation, but also protect your own emotional well-being. Responding with hostility or bitterness gives power to those who disrespected you, while responding with grace shows that you are in control of your own emotions and actions. It's also important to recognize that grace is not the same as passivity or allowing others to walk all over you. You can be gracious while still setting clear boundaries. Grace is about maintaining your integrity even when others are challenging it. It allows you to rise above the situation and to act in a way that aligns with your values, rather than reacting based on momentary emotions. Moreover, grace can soften hearts. When you respond graciously to someone's disrespect, it can disarm them and open the door for understanding. While the other person may have intended to provoke you, responding with calmness and kindness can sometimes change the tone of the conversation and bring about a more productive dialogue. Grace, therefore, is not a weakness but a strength. It's a powerful way of demonstrating emotional intelligence and maturity. When you respond with grace, you not only protect yourself from further harm, but also set an example of how to navigate difficult situations with dignity and respect. There's an old saying that silence is golden, and in the context of disrespect, it is often the wisest response. When we are disrespected, the natural instinct is often to speak up immediately, to defend ourselves or to retaliate, but sometimes the best thing we can do is remain silent. Silence does not mean that we accept or condone the disrespect, but it signals that we refuse to engage in a battle that will only escalate. When we remain silent, we are not giving energy to the negative behavior. Silence allows us to stay in control of our emotions and to avoid saying something we might later regret. It also sends a powerful message to the person who disrespects us. Their words or actions will not provoke us. In some situations, silence is a form of self-respect. It's an acknowledgement that we do not need to explain ourselves, justify our actions, or engage with someone who is intent on disrespecting us. We can walk away from the situation with our dignity intact, refusing to lower ourselves to the level of someone who is trying to provoke us. Moreover, silence can also create space for reflection. In the heat of the moment, emotions are heightened, and we might not fully understand the situation. By remaining silent, we give ourselves time to process our feelings, think clearly, and decide the best course of action. This moment of stillness can help us respond in a more thoughtful, measured way instead of reacting impulsively. Silence can also act as a buffer, preventing the situation from escalating further. When two people are caught in a heated argument or confrontation, often one person's silence can cause the other to reassess their behavior. By refusing to engage in the cycle of disrespect, we sometimes give others the chance to reconsider their actions and rethink their approach. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful tools we have when dealing with disrespect. It may seem counterintuitive. After all, why should we forgive someone who has treated us poorly? But forgiveness is not about excusing the behavior or forgetting what happened. It is about releasing the hold that resentment and anger have on us. When we hold on to feelings of bitterness, we allow the person who disrespected us to continue to control our emotions. The act of forgiveness is about taking back that control and choosing to let go of negative feelings. By forgiving, we free ourselves from the burden of carrying around hurt and resentment. It is a decision to no longer let someone else's actions determine our emotional state. Forgiveness doesn't mean that we should continue to tolerate disrespect. It doesn't mean we should stay in toxic or harmful situations, but it does mean that we are choosing not to let the past define us. Forgiving someone doesn't excuse their actions. Rather, it allows us to move forward without being weighed down by anger or bitterness. Forgiveness also opens the door to healing. When we forgive, we can begin to heal from the pain of the disrespect. We stop replaying the hurtful incident in our minds, and we start to reclaim our peace. This doesn't happen overnight, but choosing forgiveness is the first step toward letting go of the hurt and restoring our emotional well-being. By forgiving, we also model grace and compassion both for ourselves and for others. It reminds us that we are capable of rising above the petty conflicts and showing kindness even in difficult circumstances. Setting boundaries is essential when it comes to dealing with disrespect. While we may choose to forgive and respond with grace, it is also crucial to establish limits with people who repeatedly treat us poorly. Boundaries are a way of protecting our emotional and mental well-being, and they are an expression of self-respect. Boundaries are not walls. They are healthy guidelines that communicate what we will and will not tolerate. When someone disrespects us, setting a boundary is not about punishing them, but about taking responsibility for our own well-being. It's a way of saying, I will not allow this behavior to affect me, and I will not allow it to continue. Setting boundaries requires clarity. We need to know what behaviors are unacceptable and be able to communicate that clearly to others. This may mean saying, I will not tolerate being spoken to in that manner, or I prefer to be treated with respect, and I expect that in our interactions. Boundaries can be firm but still respectful. One important aspect of boundaries is consistency. It's not enough to set a boundary once and then let it slide when someone disrespects us again. Boundaries must be enforced. If someone crosses them, it's essential to address the behavior immediately and reaffirm the boundary. Setting boundaries doesn't necessarily mean cutting people out of your life, but it does mean protecting yourself from further harm. It's about taking responsibility for your emotional safety and ensuring that you are not continuously subjected to toxic behavior. At the core of dealing with disrespect is the decision to choose peace over conflict. When we are disrespected, our natural inclination might be to engage in a verbal battle, to stand our ground and prove that we are right. However, the true path to peace is often found in choosing not to engage in conflict at all. Choosing peace is about prioritizing your inner calm and emotional stability over the need to win or be vindicated in the moment. When we engage in conflict, especially when it comes to disrespect, we often only add fuel to the fire. The conflict intensifies, emotions escalate, and we find ourselves in a cycle of negativity. Peace, on the other hand, disarms conflict. When we choose peace, we choose not to let external circumstances dictate our emotional state. We may not be able to control how others treat us, but we can control how we respond. Choosing peace means resisting the urge to fight, and instead focusing on maintaining our sense of calm and clarity. This decision brings freedom. Choosing peace allows us to walk away from toxic situations with our dignity intact. It gives us the strength to rise above petty disputes and to preserve our mental and emotional health. Ultimately, choosing peace is a reflection of our understanding that true victory is not in being right, but in remaining at peace with ourselves. In conclusion, handling disrespect with grace and emotional control is a powerful way to preserve our dignity and peace. By understanding that disrespect often reflects the other person's inner struggles, we can respond with empathy rather than anger. Choosing silence, forgiveness, and setting healthy boundaries allows us to rise above negative behavior. Ultimately, by prioritizing peace over conflict, we protect our emotional well-being and demonstrate strength of character. In each moment, we have the choice to respond with wisdom, and in doing so, we foster a life of respect.